Good morning. Good morning. I'm Lauren Reese, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Wilson Center and our partners at the U.S. Agency for International Development and Integra, it's my privilege to welcome you to today's event. We are particularly honored to be hosting today Ambassador Amanbayev of the Kyrgyz Republic and Ambassador Hamarlizoda of Tajikistan. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Your presence really underscores the importance of the topic of today's discussion and the value of innovative decision support tools like MODSNOW. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'll give you a quick word about where you're sitting. The Wilson Center is a think tank mandated by the U.S. Congress to bridge policy, practice, and research. We're home to about 15 programs that focus on every region of the world and today's most pressing issues. The program I direct, the Environmental Change and Security Program, or ECSP, focuses on connecting the issues at the intersection of environment, population dynamics, and security to foreign policy and international development. Since our earliest days, water security has been a core focus of the program, and our Water at Wilson series aims to elevate the importance and the role of good water resource management in fostering resilience and building peace around the globe. The topic of today's discussion, water security in Central and South Asia, couldn't be more timely. Climate change and rising demand for water resources are increasingly complicating water resource management in the region, with cascading effects on food, energy, and environmental security. In light of these challenges, MODSNOW is a critical tool that can contribute to improving predictive capabilities around water availability and inform better management of water resources in the region. You're going to hear today from Dr. Mary Melnick, Environmental Security and Resilience Division Chief for USAID's Asia Bureau. In the course of planning this event, Mary reminded us that our collaboration on this topic goes back to 2008, when under the direction of Jeff DeBelko, ECSP partnered with USAID on a project called Asia's Future, Critical Thinking for a Changing Environment. That project led to recommendations on water security, which brings us here to today. It's both a heartening and sobering reminder of the importance of this work and the pace of urgency around it that has only grown in the years since. So thank you for being here with us today and for participating in this discussion. And a special thank you to Mary and the team at USAID and Pin and Eleanor at Integra for their leadership on this important work. And now it is my pleasure to turn the podium over to Anjali Kaur, Deputy Assistant Administrator for USAID's Asia Bureau. Following Ms. Kaur's remarks, we will hear from Ambassador Hamarlizoda and Ambassador Amanbayev. Ms. Kaur, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Lauren. And thanks to all of you. These are such specific topics, especially on water security. To have an audience that takes interest in that, first and foremost, I think is important, but also to recognize how critical climate change is and how critical water and water diplomacy continue to become as we engage in this space. So first, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Ambassador Hamarlizoda, Ambassador Amanbayev, and to our representatives from across the embassies of South and Central Asia. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to work and lead our work for USAID on South and Central Asia, clearly my most favorite region in the world, not only because of the topics we're going to discuss today, but because of the rich issues that we get to touch upon across all of these countries. And climate change is one of them. So climate change, as you noted, is already affecting the rate of glacier and snow melt in this region in South and Central Asia's high mountain regions. And these high mountain water resources, while bountiful, are exceedingly fragile, susceptible to the slightest shifts in climate patterns, which our panel today will delve into more so. And the melting glaciers, erratic rainfall, and shifting weather patterns associated with climate change threaten the stability and the availability of these crucial water resources for more than 1 billion people, or nearly 1 in 7 people on this planet. With accelerated snowmelt and heavy rainfall events also comes the greater risk for landslides and other severe natural disasters, which can have devastating consequences for communities and for the economies. At USAID, we recognize that the accelerated pace of climate change presents an urgent security challenge that demands immediate and concerted action from the international community. And as we continue to develop our South Asia regional framework at USAID, we're keeping this immediate security challenge at top of mind. And in response to this daunting challenge, we have been at the forefront of harnessing technology to safeguard water security in some of the most vulnerable regions of the world. We're proud to have partnered with Integra to develop the simple yet remarkably effective MODSNOW, designed to empower governments and communities in Asia to monitor water flows originating from high mountains. This innovative solution is the byproduct of more than 10 years of partnership, and it is helping regional leaders track the rates of glacier melt. The newest iteration leverages the latest in satellite imaging, data analytics, and remote sensing technologies to provide insights into water availability, quality, and seasonal trends, but in real time. This tool is more than just a technological achievement. It represents a beacon of hope and a step towards resilience. By providing governments and local stakeholders with accurate and timely information, we're enabling informed decision-making, better planning, and ultimately, the sustainable management of water resources. This is critical not only for the immediate needs of the present, but also for the long-term sustainability and prosperity of future generations. On behalf of USAID, I'd like to express our thanks to you, Dr. Abror Gafurov, your team at Integra, for helping to develop this leading-edge technology, and we look forward to your presentation. The challenges we face are daunting, but with innovative solutions, international collaboration, and shared resolve, we can forge a path towards a more sustainable and resilient future. So let us continue to work hand in hand, leveraging the best of technology and human ingenuity to protect our most precious resources and ensure a thriving planet for all. We couldn't do this without enduring partnerships in the region and leaders committed to taking joint action on this important issue. We are fortunate to have leaders in the room with us who will benefit directly from this innovative technology. And therefore, it is my pleasure to introduce His Excellency, who just walked into the room at the perfect time, Ambassador Sridhar Khatri of Nepal, followed by His Excellency Ambassador Hamarli Zoda, and then His Excellency Ambassador Amanbayev. To all of them to share their wisdom and expertise with us today, but also to thank you for being such great partners, not just on water, but across all of our development priorities in the region. So I leave it over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, and my apologies for being slightly late. Deputy Assistant Administrator Anjali Kao, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, all of whom have distinguished background on water resource management, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank USAID for this opportunity to share my thoughts on this enlightened and august gathering on one of the top most critical issues confronting Nepal and South Asia regarding water security in the region. When we talk about water security in South Asia, the talk basically centers around the Himalayas, which are also known as water towers of Asia. The Himalayas are the source of some of the major river basins in the region. The Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Indus rivers are the major river basins that have defined the South Asian region's water security. The Himalayas are the source of life for civilization in South Asia, and one of the identifiers of Nepal's nationhood when projected to the outer world. Almost every sector of the economy of Nepal are directly linked to the Himalayas. As such, Nepal's present and future economy and prospect for greater prosperity depends on the preservation and management of the precious water resources of the Himalayas. Unfortunately, there are alarming signs of rapid melting down of snow in the Himalayas. There are reports that 1/3 of the snow of the Himalayas have already melted, and by the end of the century, almost 75% of the ice in the Himalayas could melt due to climate change. We have been experiencing frequent snow avalanches, glacial lake outbursts, and flash floods resulting in huge human casualties, land erosions, and destruction of infrastructures. The Himalayas are now gradually turning into Rocky Mountains without snow. Considering these adverse effects of climate change, Nepal has adopted the GRID policy. It prioritizes green, resilient, and inclusive development, in other words, GRID, particularly while developing infrastructures. Given Nepal's limited financial means and technological capability, implementing the grid is a very expensive enterprise. Hence, Nepal looks forward to financial and technological support from its development partners to face this challenge. In the area of water resource conservation, the USAID has already provided training to people in the Department of Meteorology in Nepal to monitor snow cover and water resources in the Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region. This initiative, along with the application of MODSNOW tool developed by Dr. Abror Gafurov, you'll have to pardon my pronunciation, will provide real-time information of water resources and help us to better prepare for disaster response. It will also be of great value in terms of planning for irrigation, hydropower generation, and water supply of the entire region. As Nepal is pursuing its ambition of achieving sustainable net zero CO2 emission by 2045, we look forward to deepening our interaction with the development partners like the United States in achieving water security, not only for Nepal, for the rest of South Asia. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my remarks, I'm honored to extend my greetings to my colleagues, Ambassador Amanbaeva, Ambassador Chatri. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to Wilson Center and the USAID, especially to Madame Anjali Kaur, for the given opportunity to participate in this important event. We are confident that our joint efforts are directed towards strengthening mutual beneficial cooperation between the Republic of Tajikistan and the United States. Over the 3 decades of partnership and fruitful cooperation, the friendly relations between our countries has expanded and evolved, and the USAID has been playing a big key role in this process. Tajikistan, a country with abundant natural resources, particular water, along with significant human potential and unique geographical location at the heart of Central Asia, holds significant importance for both the region and the world. Our water, climate change, peace, and stability initiatives constitute valuable contribution to global development processes. They are widely recognized and supported by global community. As you are well aware, globally, water resources are deeply affected by various threats and challenges, which have indeed has a negative impact to all aspects of public life. This impact is particularly evident in food security, health, generation of green power, and nature sustainability. In this context, climate change stand out of a significant factor affecting drinking water resources. Additionally, the accelerated growth of world population further intensifies the demand for water. In the meantime, water significantly contributes to the economic development of countries. Economic sectors closely tied to water, such as agriculture, irrigation, hydropower, industry, and tourism, generate tens of thousands of jobs and contribute to overall employment and therefore well-being of the nation. Climate change has significantly impacted to Tajikistan, which serves as a source of 60% of the water in the region. The rapid melting of glaciers serves as clear testament to the climate change. Over the past few decades, more than 1,000 of the 30,000 glaciers have been melted in Tajikistan. Additionally, as a 93% of our territory covered by mountains, Tajikistan stands one of the most vulnerable countries in the climate change consequences. Every year it suffers from the floods, landslides, avalanches, and other water-related natural disasters. To mitigate risk and vulnerability associated with climate change, as well as minimize its adverse effect to the social and economic sectors of the country, the government of Tajikistan is currently implementing the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy for the period up to 2030. With a view to achieving the goals of the strategy, we need financial support from the international community, including for capacity building and the transfer of green technologies. To ensure food and environmental security, the government of Tajikistan initiated reforms to the water sector in order to introduce more effective and sustainable institution and legal mechanism for water resources management, rational use of water and land, and cutting-edge technology to increase the agriculture sector's efficiency. To strive to complete the water reform by 2025 and introduce the integrated water resources management system nationwide. Tajikistan has recently endorsed a revised water code that aligns with the integrated water resources management principles. Currently, we are in the process of developing Tajikistan's next national water strategy and a comprehensive program to ensure safe drinking water and sanitation access for the entire population by 2030. Our commitment includes gradually doubling funding in this critical area. Due to abundance of water resources and the hydroelectric power, Tajikistan relies on water as a primary source of the electricity production. Especially Tajikistan generates 98% of its electricity from the hydropower plants, even though it has only utilized 5% of its total hydropower resources. It's worth mentioning that Tajikistan ranks 6th in the world in terms of the share of electricity generated from renewable water resources. It is generation of green energy. In this context, with aim of effectively utilizing natural resources and attracting green investments and technologies to the economy, the Tajik government has adopted and implementing the Green Economy Development Strategy 2023-2037. Our objective is to achieve a 100% green energy electricity supply by 2032. We are also determined to double the capacity of our hydropower plants by 2015 and make a decent contribution to the development of green economy. Remarkably, our country ranks 130th in the global greenhouse gas emissions. That means that Tajikistan's per capita greenhouse gas emissions are among the lowest in the world, representing a valuable contribution to addressing global environmental challenges. In this is worth noting also that Tajikistan has been leading in the water-related issues on the global development agenda for more than 2 decades. At our initiatives, the United Nations General Assembly adopted 9 resolutions on water issues, and their implementation laid a strong foundation in achieving coordinated global water goals. We will further strive through integrated efforts to address the water and climate issues, including during implementation of International Year of Glaciers Preservation, which has proclaimed by UNGA at the initiative of Tajikistan in December 2022. At the initiative of Tajikistan, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on declaring 2025 as an International Year of Glaciers Preservation, and March 21 as World Glaciers Day, and the establishment of the International Trust Fund to promote the glaciers preservation. Remarkably, Tajikistan's 5th initiative, the International Decade for Action Water for Sustainable Development, is currently being implemented at the national, regional, and global level. We look forward, dear friends, to welcome your country delegations to 3rd high-level international conference, Water for Sustainable Development, in 10-13 June this year in Dushanbe. Dear friends, in face of the ongoing climate crisis, it's crucial for world leaders, governments, and institutions to take swift actions, adopt forward-thinking approaches, embrace innovation, and drive transformative change. Effective water resource management for sustainable development necessitates collecting, interpreting, and applying data and information in relation to the water resources. Building capacity to conduct water resources assessment and monitoring is a crucial component of sustainable water management. I look forward for today's presentation of a new tool for water security in the region, and I believe that fruitful dialogues and the discussion within the framework of this event will contribute to defining a common vision and to make these initiatives successful and effective. In conclusion, I wish each and every one of you happiness, well-being, prosperity, and success. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dear my fellow ambassadors, Ms. Kaur, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, as ambassador of my country, it is a great honor for me to be here, and I sincerely welcome all of you to this significant, I would say, event organized by USAID and the Wilson Center to discuss the new instruments for water protection, or water security in Central Asia and the South Asia region. My special gratitude for Wilson Center also for organizing such a wonderful event. It's very important for all of us. Before moving to the main topic of our conversation, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like slightly highlight the main aspects of my country which relevant to this discussion. My country is a mountainous country, which is located in Central Asia. The key, promising, and profitable area is hydropower. 90% territory of our country is covered by mountains. 30% of former Soviet Union clean water resources located in Kyrgyz Republic. We have huge clean energy potential, hydropower potential, capable to produce 150 billion kilowatt hours energy per year. Now we currently use just 15% of this clean energy capacity. It means remaining 85% of clean energy capacity remains untapped. There are plenty of glaciers in our country. Famous Pamir mountain range with Lenin Peak, more than 7,000 meters above sea level. This is second place, highest place after Nepal in the world. We have more than 260 rivers and more than 90 canals we reach in water resources. But unfortunately, because of the climate change in the world over the last several years, our mountain glaciers has already begun melt rapidly. It's a big problem, not only our country, for all humanity. Therefore, our esteemed President of Kyrgyz Republic, Mr. Japarov, came to the United Nations in New York, and they suggested, and the United Nations declared 20 by the initiative of our President. United Nations declared 2022 as the International Year of Sustainable Mountain Development. That next year, United Nations adopted the 5-year action plan to the development of mountain range. Today, I heard that new project starts, supported by USAID, which is called MODSNOW. As I was informed, it's very important project to provide all mountainous country with necessary tools. What do we need now? For example, we need effective water management. We need to estimate water reservoirs, water supplies, to estimate water flows. It's very important for us. MODSNOW, I was said, supplies these tools and provides us with necessary information to forecast the water availability. It's a key information in order to effectively managing these water resources, not only local, national level. Therefore, we all together to invited here today to discuss about these new innovative tools, about its future, how it's important for us. I think today's discussion will be very fruitful for all of us. And it will move us all together to the effective, productive, successful, and sustainable water management strategy. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, Ms. Kaur, thank you so much for setting a strong foundation for today's discussion and underscoring how important this topic and this tool is or are for water security in the region. I'm so pleased to now welcome Dr. Abror Ghafarov to the floor for a presentation of MODSNOW. Dr. Ghafarov is the founder and director of Innovative Water and Environmental Solutions, a Berlin-based company which uses innovative methods to address emerging water and environment issues. A hydrologist with expertise in mountain hydrology, Dr. Ghafarov is the man behind the tool. He led the development and developed the MODSNOW tool, which aims to provide crucial information for monitoring snow cover and water resources in Central Asia. So now I welcome Dr. Ghafarov to the floor. Following Dr. Ghafarov's presentation, my colleague Michael Kugelman, who directs our South Asia Institute here at the Wilson Center, will invite our panel to the floor for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for this kind introduction. Welcome, everyone, to this event. I'm pleased to be here. Thanks to USAID, Mary Melnick, also Integra, Pin and Eleanor for making this possible. My name is Abror Ghafarov, and I'm a director of a company, Innovative Water and Environmental Solutions, based in Berlin. This is a spin-off company to a research center, GFZ Potsdam, where I worked many years as a scientist in the frame of Berlin Process and Green Central Asia projects. But today I'm going to talk about the MODSNOW tool, a new tool for water security in Central and South Asia. It's so good to have also representatives of South Asian countries because we were recently in Pakistan and Nepal and delivered this training. So I'm very much pleased to tell you more about the MODSNOW tool in the next slides. Before I continue, I would like also to acknowledge the contribution from my team. These are Friedrich Busch, Akmal, Atham, Philip Teuring, and the entire IVES team who might be joining virtually today and following the presentations. So the MODSNOW tool is a new tool for water security in Central and South Asia. That's the topic. And water is a source of peace and prosperity in Central and South Asia. We all know this, and under USAID and Asia Emerging Opportunities and Integra, IVES enhanced MODSNOW for improved real-time monitoring of water resources. In the frame of this project, we also delivered trainings on MODSNOW in 7 countries of Central and South Asia. In Central Asia, these are Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. In South Asia, we were in Nepal and in Pakistan. The enhanced MODSNOW allows better management of water resources in Central and South Asia. It helps to predict the unpredictables, for example, flash floods, droughts, other natural hazards. It also delivers real-time information on water supply from source areas. We heard from ambassadors today, it is important to know the amount of water in the mountains, and this is also what this MODSNOW is delivering, and also supporting decision-making process with valuable information on water availability. Now, Himalaya, Hindu-Kush, Pamir, and Tien Shan, these are high mountainous areas, but these are also water towers of Central and South Asia. They store water in form of snow and glaciers for summer season and supplies water for over 1 billion population. But this region is also highly vulnerable to climate change. It was also already mentioned. More than 30% of glaciers has melted already. And these mountains are unfortunately also losing their function of storing water for summer season. Because when temperature rises, more share of precipitation is falling as rain and not as a snow. If it falls as a rain, then it flows down and also triggers natural hazards such as floods, landslides, mud flows. So water availability in this region is highly dependent on the cryosphere. This is snow cover and also glaciers. And in this figure, you see on the left side the variability of river flow in the Chirchik River Basin in Uzbekistan, West Tien Shan, where we had a drought year, which was 2000, highlighted with red box. And then we also had a water abundant year, which was 2017. And when we look at the snow accumulation derived from satellite, we see that when we have more water, then we also have more snow. So when we have more snow, then we also have more water. And the other way around is also the case. The below average snow accumulation leads to drought conditions in Central Asia. So we already say that South and Central Asian mountains are water towers. And in the figure on the right side, you see this question mark. We want to understand how much water is available in the source area. Here I want to give you one example. I'm pretty much sure all of you were in front of a reservoir where a lot of water is stored. When you go there, you see amount of water, and when you go to operator and ask about how much water is stored there, he or she may be able to answer you the question and say about 5 cubic kilometers. But what about the amount of water which is stored above reservoirs in the source area? We don't know this because it's a complex system. It's a mountainous system. It has a very complex terrain. What we are trying to do is to identify amount of water available above reservoirs so we can plan accordingly based on available water resources. So that's why we created a tool, MODSNOW, which is an operational cryosphere and water resources monitoring tool. Data is a problem in Central and South Asian region. That's why we use satellite snow cover data, MODSNOW cover data. And MODSNOW cover data is an optical remote sensing data which cannot observe the area if the cloud coverage is there. So we have developed a cloud cover elimination algorithm, which is also part of the MODSNOW. And we use that information for water availability forecast before the vegetation period and also for monthly scale based on remote sensing snow cover data. In the last years, we have also integrated 2 modules, one module on snow depths monitoring at 500 meter and 25 meter spatial scale, and the other one also estimation of glacier melt amount, which was newly developed in the frame of this project that was funded by USAID. The snow melt module was first tested in Central Asia in the frame of a World Bank project, but enhanced also in this project to adapt for Central and South Asian region. Now, here in this slide, I would like to give you one more time an overview of what we are actually doing. When we want to do a informed decision-making on water resources management, we need data. And we can have this data. This is raw data. This can be satellite data or observed hydrometeorological data. But this data is highly useful, but also difficult to understand for policymakers. If I give a time series of temperature or precipitation to a policymaker, he or she may say, that's great, but I want to know amount of water. So here comes MODSNOW. We use that raw data, we process it, we analyze it, and transform it with simulations into user-friendly figures and tables. And at the end, we come up with an output that can support decision-making process based on available water resources in the source area of mountainous areas. So I say that data is an issue in Central Asia or also in South Asia. This figure shows you Aral Sea watershed area with available meteorological stations. Dots are meteorological stations. As you see, they seem to be quite dense, but if you look closer to the image, then we have mountainous areas where we have very little observation. But exactly these areas are important for us because water is coming from there. For over 1 billion population, water is coming from this region. So that's why using satellite data allows us to get spatially distributed information on snow. Snow is very important. We've heard that today. And here, the white one is snow coverage, the green one is no snow areas, but the black one is cloud coverage. So we need to kind of clean that cloud cover, and that's why we have developed the tool. And if I process this image for a specific river basin, this is Kara-Darya River Basin in Kyrgyzstan, then I have some days where I have less cloud. I'm lucky, I can use that information for assessing water availability. But in many other days, I can also have days where I don't have useful information. So that's why using the cloud cover removal algorithm, we can get rid of these clouds and get cloud-free snow data for better analysis. You may ask about the quality of this cloud removal. We have tested this in 2016 in Central Asia using observed data. 94% of the accuracy we achieved. And this is an automated process that generates time series of snow cover data for the last 25 years, also in remote areas where we have no observations. Now, that's okay if I have that scientifically sound data, but I still want to transform it to a form that I can communicate to decision makers. And this one, here one example comes. This is an example from Pakistan, Hiali River Basin. And in this figure, you see on the y-axis snow coverage in percentage, and on the x-axis months starting from September, which we call a hydrological year when snow accumulation starts. And in this figure, you also have 4 lines. The first line is the orange line, which shows the minimum snow cover area observed in the last 25 years in this river basin. And this was observed in 2010 and 11, hydrological year. Then the next line is the green, the blue line, which is the maximum snow cover for the last 25 years, which was observed in 2004 and 2005. As you see, during the snow accumulation period, but also during the snow melt phase, we have more snow. Then we have the green line, which is the average for the last 25 years. This is so-called snow climatology of this river basin. What is important here is the last line, which is the red line, dashed line, which is current year situation of snow coverage in this river basin. As you see, we had a good start of snow accumulation, but then we had this area in Pakistan, very little snow. And there was a lot of concern also in mass media that this is a snow drought condition. If this is a snow drought condition, the consequence of this is that the next summer will be drought. If there is a drought, then there is a lot of negative consequence to agriculture, to drinking water supply, etc. So these kind of figures are updated in MODSNOW for decision makers, so they can take it and consider it for improved or informed decision-making process when it comes to water management. When we generate this data, we can generate this data for 25 years. Then we use it for hydrological forecasting. We use it for river flow forecasting, but also forecasting of inflow to reservoirs. And also agriculture production. Especially in Central Asia, agricultural production is very important for economic stability. But it's not possible without irrigation. And this irrigation water is coming from mountains. And in some years, for example, the year 2000 or 2008, they were drought years. And if you know that there is going to be a drought condition, then there is also a room for adaptation. Now, the snow depths monitoring. The snow cover monitoring is something that is possible using remote sensing data. But people are also interested on volumetric information of snow. How much snow depth is actually available? We have integrated a module which estimates snow depths at spatial scales of 500 meter and 25 meter, also from remote areas. Usually, for example, in Pakistan and Nepal, the mountains are very high, and there is no information about snow. And we have heard about the importance of natural hazards such as avalanches. These forecasting these kind of natural hazards also require information. And we try to generate information also from remote areas using satellite data, reanalysis data, so we can use them to better plan for any expected natural hazard. These kind of figures here, the figure on the right side is snow depth distribution for a Dagana River basin in Tajikistan. And this is for March 4. And as you see, you have different years maps, and all of them are from March 4, but different years. And these maps are updated every day. If I give this map to a policymaker, he or she may be able to understand, because he or she may be able to compare it with other years. When I take a decision, how is the snow cover situation as of today compared to last year or compared to 2 years ago? So as you see, for this year, 2024, we have unfortunately less snow in Dagana in Tajikistan compared to 2023. And the situation is similar to 2021 or 2018. So I can go back to my memories on what happened in these years and use this information. So we think that this is a useful information for policymakers in order to take informed decision making. The last module is the glacier melt quantification for improved water supply assessment in late summer. We have developed this module from the scratch in the frame of this project funded by USAID. And it is able to simulate glacier melt amount because, you know, snow is melting until about June, July, then snow has disappeared. But river flow does not stop, and this water is coming from glacier melt. And then that's why we needed to have a glacier melt module to be able to forecast also water availability after June, after July. This is especially important for agricultural production. But it's also possible to use this information for GLOF analysis, glacier lake outburst floods. We have done this in Pakistan for one small glacier lake. Because there is a possibility to estimate it at 25 meter spatial resolution. It's also possible to run the model for future scenarios using the climate data, what will happen in 2070 with glaciers. So this is also something that we can do. So I've told about snow cover, snow melt, and also glacier melt, but still these are useful information. But the policymaker is interested on amount of water at the end. That's why we are now generating this kind of figures, droplets of water, which contains information about real-time available water resources in the mountain system. And this image is for Maidantal River Basin in Uzbekistan for January 10, 2024. And in the beginning, if you remember, I gave an example with reservoir. When we go to a reservoir, we know how much water is available there. But when we ask how much water is available above the reservoirs, then there is a question mark. So this image is leading to something like that because it is from January 10, 2024, and for different years. As you know, as you see, in 2024, we are okay with water above average, but it's not full. Last year, we had a lot of water. This kind of information may be useful for decision makers to plan better based on available water resources. In South and Central Asia, in the frame of the USAID project, we have delivered trainings to almost 120 participants. 39 women, 80 men, and specialists from hydrological forecasters, avalanche specialists, especially in Kyrgyzstan, attended the training, but also water resource management specialists. Last year, in the frame of the IFAS conference in Tajikistan, we have also organized a site event to introduce the project to agencies and governmental organizations in Central Asia. Impacts and scalability, the project impact. We do hydrological forecast using MODSNOW in Central Asia, and we also tested the quality since many years, and it has improved the services in Central Asia. We cannot give a valid statement for South Asia yet because we were only recently in South Asia. We need to wait the next 6 months or 1 year or 2 years to validate the information we are getting from MODSNOW. And user-friendly infographics, as I showed today, they help policymakers in Central Asia to take informed decision-making process. And capacity building was also a positive impact of the project to 119 hydrologists and meteorologists in improved assessment of water supply from source area. The scalability, the MODSNOW tool is easily transferable to new river basins, also beyond South and Central Asia. And it has a capability of assessing water availability in real time, also in data scarce conditions, because we use satellite data, we use reanalysis data for this purpose. And it's possible to apply in regional scale to increase transparency of water availability for improved sharing. In Central Asia and South Asia, many rivers have a transboundary context. They don't stop at country borders. So knowing the amount of water available in the source area may be helpful to distribute water resources among interested stakeholders. With this, I would like to thank for your attention and please to answer questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gafra, for an excellent presentation. This time, it looks like everyone's already coming up. I didn't even have to summon everyone. Great. I'll take a seat. Let me just say that I'm very grateful to the Environmental Change and Security Program for giving me the opportunity to moderate the panel component of our event today, and it's great to be partnering with USAID. This topic is, well, I'm preaching to a giant choir here, I know, but this topic is incredibly important. In the regions that we're discussing today, I think it's easy for analysts, particularly those outside the regions in question, to fixate on the many policy challenges of the moment, whether they're political or economic or legal or security or whatever the case. But water insecurity and indeed the future prospect of water scarcity is that urgent issue that's so often overlooked or set aside. It's often an elephant in the room that really should not be. In South Asia, the region that I study, there's a perfect storm, and the pun is very much intended, of population growth, heavy dependence on agriculture, inefficient uses of natural resources, and climate change vulnerability that is driving deepening levels of water insecurity. And this challenge also plays out vividly in Central Asia. Making water policy more effective is therefore a critical need, and that is the focus of this discussion today. So I'll very briefly introduce our panelists. We've already heard from Dr. Ghafarov. We also have with us Dr. Sherry Goodman, Senior Fellow at the Wilson Center's Environmental Change and Security Program and Polar Institute, and Secretary General of the International Military Council on Climate and Security, among other affiliations. We also have with us Dr. Mary Melnick, who is the Environmental Security and Resilience Division Chief for USAID's Bureau Chief. She has 30 years of experience working on community development, biodiversity conservation, and the environment in Asia and Latin America. And finally, Dr. Eric Rudenschold is the Senior Fellow for Caspian Affairs at the Caspian Policy Center. He previously served under Presidents Trump and Biden as National Security Council Director for Central Asia, and he's also had a variety of posts at USAID. So in just a moment, I'll pose some questions to our panel, and then we'll take questions from our audience here in person and online. And for those of you watching online, feel free to type in your question in the chat box right underneath your screen that you're watching now. So let's get started, and we will start with you, Dr. Rudenschold. What is at stake when it comes to water security in these regions that we're looking at? Why is measuring water availability such an urgent priority, and why is MODSNOW such a critical tool?
I'm live. So let me, from the outset, tell you I am not a climate scientist. I'm not a hydrologist. I'm a political scientist, so I don't want to fly under a false flag here. I'm someone who looks at why people behave the way they do as a kind of a political anthropologist. And I've noticed in the regions that I cover very closely, there's a major change in the behavior of countries and the people in those countries, and it's worth noting. I would say when it came to issues of water, if you go back 5-10 years ago, these countries wouldn't talk to each other about the issue at all. In fact, in some cases, there was violence threatened between countries about the water issue. And now you actually are seeing countries working together, cooperating with each other on transboundary water issues, something that was simply before the unexplored territory, as it were. And you know, for those of us who are not climate specialists, people talk about global climate change and what's going to happen in 20 or 30 years, and it's kind of an abstract concept. And so for someone like me who follows these things in sort of the distant view, I have to say the things that I've been researching lately are quite disturbing. And I think when you look at all of Central Asia in particular, the one thing that screams at you is that water in this region is receding. The water supply in the region has declined by 4 times the levels of the 1960s. 4 times. The Aral Sea, everyone has seen pictures of the Aral Sea. It is a puddle compared to its former size. 90% of the seabed is now sand. The feeder rivers that used to fill it were diverted in the Soviet era for agricultural purposes. And in the water's place is now a dried beach, a toxic beach of pesticides and fertilizers that now picked up and are blown in sandstorms that blow back on crops and towns and villages and create all sorts of disastrous consequences for health, but also further salinizing land, making it unviable for agriculture, the region's largest employer, but increasing desertification in the region. The region's expanding desert results in higher temperatures and puts further pressure on the region's glaciers, and it reduces snowfall. In Central Asia, deglaciation is visible everywhere. 1/3, as was stated earlier, 1/3 of the region's glaciers are gone. They've melted. And in fact, the region's glaciers are melting at a faster rate than anywhere else on the planet in this region. Glacial melt comes from higher temperatures. It creates flooding, as we've heard before, erosion, landslides, which threatens towns, villages, and crops. Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan have very small amounts of land that they can use for farming. Glacial melt destabilizes, as the glaciers recede, it destabilizes the land, which simply comes down the mountain on top of croplands. The region depends upon glacial melted, glacial energy water for energy and for drinking water. As noted, more than 1,000 glaciers in Tajikistan have melted. This threatens the entire water supply and system for all of Central Asia, as much of the region depends on hydropower. 80% of Turkmenistan now experiences intense dust and sandstorms due to declining water and growing desertification. Over 20% of Central Asia's land is now degraded and turned to desert. That's 4 times the size of Kyrgyzstan, or for people in this room, it's about a piece of land about the size of Texas. This impacts 30% of the region's population. People living in rural areas are being forced to migrate as the rate of desertification is increasing. And we talk about climate change and glacial melt, and things are bad. But the speed of glacial melt is increasing. The speed of desertification is increasing. Parts of Central Asia are becoming unsustainable to support human life. Weather patterns in the region are changing. Glacial melt is faster than the global average. Spring rains are coming earlier in the year instead of snowfall. It's replacing winter snows. Autumn snows are starting later, and what you have happen is the winter snow period is decreasing. It's been reduced by weeks. This produces a self-reinforcing cycle that is lessening glaciers and reducing snowpacks. Globally, we talk about a 1.5 degree rise as a tipping point. In Kyrgyzstan, in the capital city Bishkek, the average temperature increase is 4.3 degrees. Wow. Increasing temperatures, decreasing water supplies threaten crops and food security. I mean, that's pretty easy to understand. Life in remote areas is threatened. We see migration to cities, but the larger cities in this region are also already under stress. Last summer, capital cities in the region, Astana, Bishkek, Tashkent, all faced acute water shortages. They needed to take emergency rationing measures. Over 600,000 people last spring and summer in Astana did not have access to drinking water. 1 in 6 Central Asians now live in areas of high drought risk. Extreme weather events are increasing. It's becoming the new normal. So why is MODSNOW important? It's a tool that helps assess snow cover, and it provides predictable and accurate measurements for water management. Is this important? Well, countries in Central Asia are under high water stress. The entire region, the Tibetan Plateau, the Hindu-Kush, the Himalayas, are all in a similar situation. Glaciers are melting, water flows downhill, and it's gone. China accounts for 20% of the world's population. It only has 7% of the world's supply of fresh water. China's experienced a 50% decline in water availability between 1964 and 2020. 60% decline. For Pakistan, it was an 80% decline for the same period. Turkey, undergoing severe water stress last year. I'm trying to make this not so abstract. Last year, food prices in Turkey increased by 50% because of water stress. 60% of Turkey is now deemed prone to desertification. So what do? China is undertaking river diversion projects, and last year they even purchased water from Central Asia at a cost, of course, to the crops in Central Asia that depended upon that water in the first place, reducing food supply in Central Asia. Afghanistan is experiencing twice the global average in temperature rise. Consequently, Afghanistan is building a canal to divert water, to increase its capabilities for drinking water and agriculture. Of course, this threatens the water supply in Central Asia, which is downstream. 20 to 30% of Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan's water supply could be taken from the Amudarya River by this canal. Uzbekistan has a rapidly growing population. It's already placing great stress on its existing resources. As a country, it only produces 20% of the water that it uses. 80% comes from the Amudarya River. And one last point. Most countries in Central Asia use coal, oil, and natural gas for winter heat. All three of these fuels contribute to temperature rise, but coal combustion is a particular issue because as coal dust lands on snow, it hastens snow melt. 5 Central Asian countries are ranked among the most air-polluted countries in the world. Water, weather, food, energy, migration, employment, these are all interrelated issues, and of course they can spark conflict. Let me repeat, glaciers in this region are melting at an increasing pace. Desertification is increasing as temperatures rise. The Aral Sea, the Caspian Sea, Lake Balkhash, the region's reservoirs are all receding. All of them are receding at alarming rates. Increasing sections of Central Asia are becoming unsustainable to sustain human life. Climate change in Central Asia, I would say to you, is not an abstract concept. This region is the sharp end of the climate change spear, and I think tools like MODSNOW are absolutely critical for us at this point in time to help governments be able to help moderate and address water usage issues. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for putting it so starkly. It's so important. Sherry Goodman, talk to us about the stability implications of water security, and how can this new tool help ease water resource tensions and promote more stability in South and Central Asia? And also, what are the implications of this all for U.S. policy and interests?
Well, thank you so much, Mike, and let me thank and welcome our ambassadors here today. Let me thank our USAID sponsors and the organizations working with it. Let me thank you, Mike and Lauren. You guys are great leaders here at the Wilson Center, and it's a pleasure to work with you. And our USAID colleagues. Mary and I have worked together over many years, and it's a pleasure to meet both of your scholars. That was a very impressive presentation. So I feel like I'm flanked here by the threat multiplier and the opportunity multiplier. So, okay, let me explain that I am a recovering policymaker and lawyer who've been in and out of the U.S. government for most of my career at the nexus of environment, climate, and national security, having served as the first Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Environmental Security in the 1990s, when the Vice President at the time was, among many other things, calling attention to the changes and the shrinking of the Aral Sea, which is not new, as you well know, right? We know a lot more now, as Dr. Rudenschultz has just informed us, so about the evidence associated with climate and natural system changes in the region. And since, and I've been working at this nexus for many years. In 2007, with the first group of U.S. generals and admirals, I coined the phrase threat multiplier to characterize the linkage between climate change and security, that climate would act as an accelerant of instability. We said at the time in fragile regions of the world, but that's really, we see that happening all over the world now. That concept has been adopted and reflected across by many governments, including the U.S. and many international organizations from NATO to the UN. And when the U.S. national security strategy talks about climate being the most existential threat we face and one that poses a risk to stability, we can see how, based on the evidence that Eric has shared with us about how changes in the glacial melt, the changes in water availability, increasing water scarcity and shortage across the region are all factors that can lead to potentially increased conflict and instability. Conflict associated with potentially the more proximate connection of forces between India and Pakistan and Kashmir at the line of control as glacial melt accelerates, and the enormous flooding that has occurred in Pakistan from 2022 and on, putting many people at risk, destabilizing a nuclear-armed society, also threatening global supply chains as a region, let's say in India with major floods, can cost global supply chains the access to key goods and materials that power our world. So there are many dimensions of how climate impacts changing natural system. The front line is water. It's either too much water or too little water. Too much water from flooding and extreme weather events, increasing extreme weather events, turbulence in our natural systems, producing cyclones and tsunamis and hurricanes, and unheard of, snow events in the Arctic, rainstorms, changes with the rising temperatures, and also often now too little water and water in the wrong places, not available. So that is sort of and that can give license to those who want to take advantage of vulnerable populations, whether it's through terrorism or malign influence. We've certainly seen that across parts of Africa. And ISIS, and as people have the less means to support themselves, they're put in vulnerable situations. Now, the opportunity, but I don't want to, we got all the bad news here, and sometimes climate is all about the bad news and the threat multiplier. But I really, and my book coming out later this year is called Threat Multiplier, but really, when we get to the end of it, it's about the opportunities that we have to address this crisis and to do so in smart ways. And Dr. Gaforov really called on in the MODSNOW presentation, really one of the ways in which I think we can make the most progress, which is improving our predictive capabilities, particularly about water, predictive capabilities for water using the tools that you mentioned, the remote sensing, the data integration, data analysis, enabling more of society to understand those tools, how they're affected in their daily lives. So this improved predictive capability for practical decision-making, to me, is really the front lines of building climate resilient science. Societies, climate resilient societies who also understand the science. But when you think about it, this ability to now do, you said, a 6-month predictive capability for some dimensions here, that's highly important. I mean, think about the fact that, historically, we've had reliable weather prediction only out about a week, and maybe now it's close to 2 weeks. But getting a 6-month predictive capability so that you can, farmers can better plan their crops and then use more resilient and regenerative agricultural techniques, or change their crops, or know what to plant and when. Those are sort of highly important. Societies can also make decisions about how to reallocate water systems. So I'd say the first that gives me hope is the improved predictive capabilities of this tool and its potential application in other regions of the world that are also experiencing loss of water availability, water scarcity, water shortage, and growing desertification. The second is something, Eric, that you mentioned in your remarks, and I know I've seen in Mike's great writings, all the time about climate impacts in the region. You also talk about the opportunities for improved cooperation. So it doesn't always have to lead to further instability or conflict. In fact, the need to manage lower water availability can lead to improved cooperation at the local level. And so working to advance those cooperative initiatives in the right way is something I know is at the heart of the USAID effort. It's at the core, I think, of American strategy and policy now, which is really to knit together the elements, broad-based elements of what ensures a stable society. And, just reflecting back as a sort of old Cold Warrior, and then I'll stop. We used to think that in the nuclear age, we thought, well, that peace and stability was enabled, and Central Asia was part of the Soviet Union. Then peace and stability was enabled by the absence of conflict. Okay, but now we know today that it's not just the absence of conflict that gives us stability. We need much more in our own societies, and we need particularly that level of water availability and predictive capability to understand how to ensure that we will be able to secure prosperous livelihoods for all.
Thank you very much. And I should say, of course, that your leadership on these issues at the Wilson Center is much appreciated as well, Sherry, so thank you. Dr. Gaforov, let's go back to you, back to your terrific presentation. You spoke a bit about the impacts of this tool so far. Did you want to take just a few minutes to speak a bit more about those impacts, particularly in terms of reactions in the region so far, scale, how and where has this tool been used to this point? But also, what do you see as the ultimate benefit of this tool?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, well, we started this journey some years ago, and when we introduced it first time to Kyrgyzstan, actually, Kyrgyz Hydrometeorological Service, they started to predict water availability of Toktogul Reservoir. Toktogul is a strategic reservoir in Central Asia. And after 6 months, they approached us again and said, wow, that was very good. We had a very high quality forecast. Can we work more on this? So that was kind of an impact that they came back. And also this morning, I got an email from Pakistan flood forecasting division in Lahore, requesting to kind of repeat this training also for Lahore region. We were in Islamabad. So these are kind of impacts or the impacts to the region, because people understood that there is a possibility to forecast water availability even if there are challenges like data limitation issues. At high altitudes, we do not have data. In Nepal, in Pakistan, there are 8,000 meters, 7,000 meters of mountains where water is stored. And we cannot install meteorological stations there because it's simply too cold. We cannot live there. We can put there automatic stations, but it has also limitations. But the one thing people are realizing in Central Asia is that there are technologies to also monitor remote areas, where until a certain point there was a belief that there is no way to monitor because we don't have instrumental observational points there. So we are working in this direction, and that's what I think is a reaction and impact. And we also asked about the ultimate benefits. I mean, we are working day to day to improve the tool and predictability. We also have some validation issues where we have lack of data, etc. We need to work everywhere. But the ultimate benefits of this tool are, I think, in my point, twofold. First one is the possibility of obtaining information about water storage in the source area. And this is in operational way, real time. The other one is user-friendliness of the output we are generating that is digestible to policy-making level. So these two benefits, ultimate benefits, will probably be more and more important in times of climate change. Their Excellencies, ambassadors mentioned already the glacier melt and snow melt. We are living in Central and South Asia in a region where everything was okay so far, because we had snow accumulation in winter, snow melt starting from spring and in summer, a lot of water in summer, but due to climate change, things are changing. Natural processes are also changing. And it will be important in the future to track them, to identify, to understand where and in which location, at what time, how much water is stored. So these are the ultimate benefits of the tool, I would say, at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go to the audience, Dr. Melnick, did you want to say a word about the role of USAID in this project? And is there anything else you'd like to add about the MODSNOW tool?
Thank you so much, Michael. Welcome to all of you on behalf of USAID as well, and thank you so much for joining us today, and your excellencies for such a vivid explanation of what challenges your countries are facing as well as the actions that you're taking. At USAID, our overall goal and mission is to support other countries to become prosperous. And in order to be prosperous, we focus on areas such as sustainable economic growth, democracy building, as well as the health of people and the environment. We're talking about all of our different backgrounds. I'm a biologist by training, and I'm a technical advisor at USAID, specifically on the environment. And back in around 2008, as a technical advisor, we tried to identify the emerging issues. What's happening? What are the gaps in order to achieve this prosperous well-being for societies, individuals, and countries? So that's when we embarked, and thanks, Lauren, for mentioning our original collaboration, which really is the seed of all this work that we're seeing today, was a report, Asia's Futures, Critical Thinking for a Changing Environment. We specifically wanted to understand what's happening, what do we need to be worried about, and so at the end of that process and report, and in fact, it was March 2009, same, 14 years ago, that we brought together a series of experts, USAID staff across the region, and we realized we didn't know what was happening in the water towers of Asia. So we thought, well, obviously everyone this morning spoke about how critical water is to economies, to society, to well-being, survivability. Frankly, some areas are becoming uninhabitable. Can you imagine? You can't live here anymore. So we followed up with a study of what do we know, and it was presented here in 2010 at the Wilson Center, Changing Hydrology in the High Mountains of Asia. And we tried to look at the issue cross-sectorally. We had democracy and governance experts, health experts, agriculture, scientists. And chapter 2 of that report is on glaciers. And I personally, being a biologist, had to read that chapter like 3 or 4 times to understand what was going on. What I remember was essentially at that time there in the English language scientific literature, the Soviet scientists had extensive data and study on glaciers. But in the English press, there's only about data sets for 17 glaciers, and this is in the early 2000s and preceding. So we thought, wow, we know, we heard a lot in the press at that time, again, we're 2009, 2010, Copenhagen, and there was a lot of uproar about some statistics about all glaciers will melt by 2035. Well, as a development specialist, I can't plan activities and the resources of the American people at USAID on one blog, one statement. We needed to find out what really is going on. And in the glacier realm at that time, people were talking about glaciers retreating. But to us at USAID, the more critical question was how much water is flowing and how much potentially could we lose. So at that time, we worked with the University of Colorado at Boulder on a project. The acronym was CHARIS. It stands for Contributions of High Asia Runoff from Ice and Snow. And that was a first of its kind attempt working with the 8 high mountain countries of Asia and 11 institutions to actually quantify how much water was coming from glaciers and snowpacks. I have to flag for you at this time, this research was occurring from like 2012, and we finalized the project here December 2018 at the Wilson Center. So for those looking for those videos and webinars, they search for the third poll and Changing Hydrology, and you'll find them. They're all recorded. They're very important. I mean, the data and what was said in 2018 was extremely important. Back to this CHARIS project. They used supercomputers at the University of Colorado at Boulder at the National Snow and Ice Data Center. So fast forward 12, 13 years, we are so privileged and honored to have met Dr. Gaforov in Central Asia, who now has advanced the technologies that we don't need the supercomputers, but you can have it at your desktop. So I think Lauren and Michael will probably invite you, if you'd like to actually see a demonstration, we're going to hold one at 11:45 on the 4th floor. So now we're at a point, I think a critical juncture. You can see this is a bit of a story of a decade or so. And I think the problem with human behavior in this time, I mean, we progress, we do our analysis, we do our studies, but we often don't recognize as people that nature is not gradual on the whole. It's catastrophic, whether it be a hurricane or an earthquake, a tsunami. Nature comes quick and hard. And I think we're beginning to see that cycle in the climate realm. I mean, my dear friend and colleague Eric, mentioned the abstract. And everyone perhaps thought that this would be a gradual evolution to where we are today. But today we're seeing it hard and fast. And if I recall correctly, some of Dr. Gaforov's slides, just within the year, you can see this was a water abundant year. This was a water scarce year. Then this is a water abundant year. So this data is really important. Getting back to your question about the value of the MODSNOW tool is it's the ability to predict the unpredictable moving forward, and the need for the scientific data and analysis for a whole variety of reasons, from decision making to also avoiding conflicts, because countries may be suspicious of each other as to who's taking the most water. Sometimes it's very obvious, such as the plans for the canal in Afghanistan, but this is a very important tool. I don't know where we're going to go from here, but I'd like with how much time we have left, but I'd like to just focus on a call to action, if I may, for a moment to wrap up my remarks at this time. I think the call to action is varied and complex moving forward from this. I think each of us as individuals need to work and look at our decisions and choices every day and the impacts they have on climate, because we're at quite a crisis, if not frequently moving into catastrophe, particularly in the El Nino year that we're in. And then we look at our professional positions. Thank you to the audience. Many of you wear many hats, and you're not always in the climate box or discussion at all points in your day. Yet consider how, now knowing what you know and the things that you've been tracking, how within your other areas of portfolios is this important, and how can you become climate positive? And then I do want to recognize the ambassadors' plans, noting that their countries, whether it's GRID in Nepal, the National Adaptation Plan in Tajikistan, as well as the leadership on the Dushanbe Water Conference this June, as well as the Kyrgyz Republic being a massive water tower and the need for strategies related to that water use. So governments are moving and acting, as we clearly saw this morning. And I think there are future areas beyond the tool that are going to be very valuable areas to look at. Innovative technologies in water management. Secondly, how do we govern the access and the distribution of the water that's there? And then what is the role of communities in these high mountain areas? I think there are examples spread here and there about payment for environmental services and ecosystem services. The communities in the high mountains will be among the first to suffer from a lack of water. They also are in the watershed and can be key partners and champions in sound watershed management. As Dr. Gaforov says, we need to save every drop, and some of that drops is protecting those hillsides with vegetation. So I think the challenge is all of ours. It's a shared challenge, and there's something we can all do. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Excellent comments, really thought-provoking. Time has flown by, but we do want to take some questions. So what we will do is take a round of questions from our in-person audience, and then we'll combine some of our questions from online. So we'll start right here with the ambassador. Sir, if you could just wait till the microphone's there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your brilliant presentation, Mr. Gaforov. Thank you all. Thank you, my friend Eric, for the most scary information I have ever heard. But you all said about the problems, about the issues. We all know about it. About the melting of perennial glaciers. But you have not said about the methods, how to stop these scary things. My question is, could you tell us about the 3 measures, how to stop this melting the glaciers? I don't know. Maybe you? Thank you.
Thank you. And before we respond, are there any other questions in the room that we can get to? Yes, right here.
Hi there. I had a question. So obviously I heard a lot of, more directed, I guess this question actually is towards the ambassadors. I heard a lot of talk about our country has X amount of undeveloped water resources, or our country has X percentage more of water resources left to tap. But given that we've all talked about today that the water availability in Central Asia is decreasing, what plans are there to diversify green energy resources in these countries rather than further doubling down on hydropower? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw one other hand. Did I? Yes, right here.
Hi, thanks for the interesting talk. I am a PhD student at Georgetown, and I look at the history of climate and conflict in South Asia, and that involves a fair bit of use of long-term climate reconstructions using different proxies, speleothems, tree rings. And so I was wondering if, since this is very, very high resolution, data we are talking about, through the tool, and I was wondering if the baseline trends from this could be used in any way to sort of improve, long-term pre-instrumental climate reconstructions, and also maybe enhance, future projections of, especially for like precipitation variation and stream flow variability in the region, especially in South Asia. Could you talk about that, Professor Gaffarov? Thanks.
Thanks. Why don't we come back to the panel? And Dr. Gaffarov, did you want to start? A few of those questions seem to be directed to you specifically.
Yes, thank you very much. Before I go to that points, I also wanted to say that you asked that question previously, Michael, where the tool is used. It is used by all the hydrometeorological services in Central Asia, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. But it's also used by some organizations who are responsible to hydropower production, Uzbek Hydro Energy, for example, in Uzbekistan. Also, there is a scientific information center of Interstate Commission for Water Cooperation. This is a regional organization, and they are preparing information on water availability for presidential meetings. And they started to use the tool since last year, 2 years ago, but they didn't. Yeah, they started to use only the snow cover monitoring part. Yeah, and we have installed these tools in the frame of the earlier projects, Green Central Asia and Berlin process. But in the frame of this USAID-funded project, we have improved its capabilities with snow melt monitoring and glacier melt monitoring. But when it comes to your question, I'm not sure if I'm correct person to answer that question. But how to stop melting glaciers? Glaciers are melting, and glaciers have their response time to climate. They are not stopping from melting from today to tomorrow. This process is an impact of increasing temperature over many, many years. And international community is really working hard, in my opinion, to reduce the emissions. And in my opinion, this will lead to more stabilization of climate in the future. So all the Paris agreements and the other international commitments, meetings like COP in Dubai last meeting, they are, I think, the platforms and instruments to stop the glacier melt in the future. Otherwise, we act as we do now, and we don't consider any consequences, and then glaciers continue to melt. I know this will not answer your question completely, but this is what I can say. So that was, yeah. Do you want me to also touch on the other questions?
If you'd like to briefly,
Yes.
or we can invite others.
I can.
We just have to be brief.
I don't know if I can answer your question, but yeah, I would. Maybe the others will be able to answer that question. I would like to go to your question, namely, if we can use the data, high-resolution data we are now developing, to also, as far as I understood, train or tune our models when it comes to understanding the pre-industrial industrial era, or also future projections. I mean, we are talking about 20, 25 years of observations. Considering your time period, this is very little, 25 years. But still, in my opinion, they can be used to validate, to calibrate the models, to estimate how the changes were hundreds of years ago, or how the change can be in the next 50 years or 80 years. Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to? Yeah, please.
So you threw down the gauntlet. I'll try and respond. Policy-wise and looking to the future, I think there's two sides to this coin that are particularly urgent. One is using water more efficiently and effectively. We look across Central Asia, and a lot of the infrastructure is quite old. And in some cases, many of the water canals are just are dug into sand. They're not lined in any way. The canal that the Taliban are digging in Afghanistan is just a sand canal, and it's already had a massive leak. if it's lined, if you line these canals, then it makes a huge impact on providing more useful water at the right place at time. So changing pipes, changing the infrastructure, and increasing that efficiency can have a massive impact moving forward. That's a big investment. It also obviously is an opportunity as well in terms of employment and other things. But probably the much larger challenge, I think, is the energy transition, because as you mentioned, the temperature rise is particularly alarming, and it's a long-term shift. We see in Central Asia some of the largest methane plumes in the world. The largest contributors to global warming is coming out of the region, and all 5 countries of Central Asia have signed the methane pledge and are very focused on this issue now, taking care of updating pipes, eliminating flaring. These are the kinds of things that make a huge difference. Transitioning away from coal and oil for winter heat and shifting to the solar and wind power. We're seeing wind turbines springing up and investments in this direction. These are all very, very positive, but again, it's a long-term process, and the cumulative effects of what has been done for the last decades is going to take time to remediate and to shift, and for these new technologies to come on board and actually magnify their impact. Perhaps the greatest thing, I think, in terms of policy is for countries to work together. Transboundary issues, water doesn't respect boundaries. It flows where it flows. And having countries actually come together and discuss with one another, I think is incredibly healthy and constructive, and it's the only way, I think, to really tackle this problem.
Thank you. Anyone else want to quickly make a word before we wrap up? Sherry or Dr.?
Well, just tying some of these threads together, really 3 important ways to address your question, sir, which is first, improve efficiency and reduce waste through infrastructure and better agriculture. The second is to advance cooperative efforts on water sharing and water security. And the third really is to turn the corner on the energy transition, which means ultimately getting off of coal, which also has very adverse health effects, transitioning out of oil, and then really reducing methane flaring and other methane releases, because that is an accelerant. Accelerant methane acts much more quickly than other greenhouse gases to raise temperatures and is a more potent greenhouse gas. And so that's why certain regions, yours, the Arctic, are, their temperature increase is well above the national, above the global average.
Thank you.
I'll just say just quickly, Ambassador Amanbayev, with regards, I think our colleagues have spoken a great deal to solutions, and Dr. Gaforov has mentioned, climate change is moving. I think there's some immediate issues, excuse me, such as the soot that's coming out of different factories and power plants, because that is accelerating the already climate-induced glacier melt and snowpack melt. And in addition, obviously it's difficult to put a stop on the climate, notwithstanding some of these actions to reduce methane, reduce emissions, reduce the pollution that's landing on the glaciers and snow, but also looking at how do you conserve as much water as possible. And then that goes back into the watershed management, new environmental technologies and efficiencies in the transport and protection of water. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We do need to wrap up. Unfortunately, we're out of time. For those online that posted questions, we will share those with the panelists. They'll respond to them, and then we'll post the responses on the event website. So we have not forgotten about you, those of you in our online audience. We do need to wrap. A reminder, that for those of you here in person, we will have a demonstration of the tool for those interested. It will be downstairs on our fourth floor conference room, 2 floors down. There'll be light refreshments available as well. But with that, I wanted to thank our panelists and our partners, our audience, particularly our ambassador community. Thank you for being with us. This is a terrific discussion, an important discussion. So thank you very much.